Hi, I'm Carey Dissmore.
And I'm Steve, a very impatient Oakley.
Okay, this is it. We're finally going to get to grading something.
Yes.
So we were talking about what we wanted to do, and we had this idea.
Real world.
Real world projects.
One of my projects, one of your projects.
Yep. Projects I did for a real client. I had real direction, but we thought, okay, what if we took each other's raw footage
And did something with it.
Yeah, and graded it however we wanted. So
no, you got to follow directions.
Well, that's true. I will show my project how I grade it for my clients' needs. You can do whatever you want with it. And then I'll do the same with your project in reverse. This isn't a walkthrough tutorial where we're going to step through every feature and every menu and every button and every slider. Yeah. We're just going to talk about what we did to get the job done.
We're going to smoke the tires up and jam it into fifth.
You know it. Let's go.
So here we go, real world project number 1. Now I happened to be helping out on this shoot and I snapped a few shots on my iPhone, so I thought it'd be nice to show you a little behind the scenes and set the stage a little bit here. This is me dumping data on my portable setup. We shot with 2 F3s and a 5D Mark II. The F3s were recording 220 megabit to nanoflash devices. We're using available daylight but also supplementing with a lot of HMI. The location was an open space in an office tower adjacent to the company's office. When we got to the location that morning, we saw all this yellow glue stuff left over from where there used to be carpet in this space, and it was creating all this yellow spill. Here's another shot of some actors we shot on green. I'm showing you that to show you this. Now this is sort of a branding piece for the company. I actually built this all in After Effects. I wanted you to see it for the clean white look of this brand. Now the producer on this project came to me and basically gave me the direction, pull all the yellow out. And what I took that to mean was rather than go to the extreme of rotoscoping everybody out and putting them on pure white backgrounds, to keep it kind of natural. These are real people giving real testimonials about this service. So that's the approach I took. So let's get into it here. So the first thing I like to do is sort of find the happy frame that I want to work with. I like eye contact. I kind of scrub through. This will be fine in here. So I'm looking at outboard ultra scopes here. I'm going to go ahead and open up one of the Resolve scopes. I'll use the Parade. You can see that this shot is not very balanced right now. We've got a ton of information way up here in the red channel, green and then blue dropping down. So in the first node, what I really like to do generally is just get a basic balance to the shot. So I'm going to do that now. Bring blacks down just a little bit, but don't crater them. Bring whites up. Get that extension in the contrast. Not every shot has to peak out top contrast, but in that basic node, I feel like this is maybe a little too cool. I'm going to cheat it back a little bit on the red channel, making sure I don't clip out there. Although in the 32-bit floating space of Resolve, you really don't have to worry too much about clipping out in one node because you can bring it back in the other and not really feel any pain. As long as you're back to legal by the time you're outputting. So basically, that's all I really ever want to do with my first node is get a basic balance, get some color correction going, get the shot kind of neutral. And I use additional nodes to do more of my grading work. So we've got a good first node balance. However, that's not where I want to end up. So first thing I'm going to do is hit Shift S to add a serial node. Now serial means it flows out of the first node. So changes you make here in node 1 pass through to serial node 2. So right off the bat, I'm going to go to my qualifier tab and I'm going to grab the color picker and start eyedroppering flesh tones here on the face. And to help me see that better, I'm going to hit Shift H to just put it in highlight mode so I can kind of see the areas that I'm selecting. Take the time to make sure you get a good, clean selection. Now, in this case, I'm just going to immediately invert it. So after a bit of fiddling, I'm kind of settled on this and I'm ready to work on these backgrounds. So let's turn off the highlighting feature. And let's start pulling saturation out of these. It's looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. But I'm not done yet. I want to do a little more work on this overall look. So I'm going to hit Shift S again to add another serial node. So now I'm back on a full frame node and I'm just going to kind of cool this off a little more. So I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to pop down into my Curves tab here and jump into the Soft Clip and just roll my high soft back. That's sort of a highlight recovery, kind of compresses down. Tiny tweak, come back here to the grade tab. I'm going to arrow key up, grade off, grade on, grade off, grade on. Let me tell you a little bit of color grading philosophy. I think honest colorists would tell you this as well. 90% of the shots I encounter are actually solvable in 1 or 2 nodes. You know, basic primary corrections, set a look, little secondary tweak, boom, on to the next shot. That's really all there is to it. It's those 10%ers that you're ending up, lots of secondaries, pulling keys, blurs, track mats, power windows, you name it. You can spend hours working on them. Now, Resolve has a lot of ways to save grades, but I'm going to show you just one right now. Here you see some grades that I saved earlier when I was rehearsing. But the fourth one here is open. These are memory banks that map to keyboard shortcuts. For memory 4, I'll hit Option 4, and boom, my grade is stored. Now to apply it elsewhere, grab a different shot, Command 4. So Option 4 to store it, Command 4 to retrieve it. As you can imagine, there's a different keyboard shortcut for each one of these banks. Resolve also has some great ways to group shots together, like all the camera 1 cuts, all the camera 2 cuts, so that you can adjust the grade on all of them at once. But I haven't actually done that here. Instead, I'm going to show you how to simply copy a grade from shot to shot. A really nice way to do this is with a mouse that has a scroll wheel that has a click down center button. So let's just say I'm grabbing this shot here, and I want to copy the grade from this shot. I'm just going to click to select this, standard click, and come over here to this shot and center click. Boom. Grade is applied. Let's come down here again, center click. Boom. Grade is applied. So I didn't actually store that in a memory, I just copied it from somewhere else in my timeline. So here I've completed the grade. And that's it really. Fairly simple, straightforward stuff, but still leveraging the power of Resolve to really kind of fine-tune those details in the grade. And in the end, both the producer, my client, and their client, this company, were very happy. But now, I'm done. I'm ready to hand it off to Steve and see what he's going to do with it.
So while Kari had to take direction from his client on the look of the project, I have room to play and I'm going to do that. Now, the first thing I did was I needed to actually match all the shots together. And if you take a look at this, we've got 3 cameras and basically 3 distinct angles. Now, instead of grading all these shots separately, copying and pasting grades, what I actually did was I grouped them together. What this means is that when I grade one shot, I grade all the rest at once. So this very quickly lets me even out and match all the shots together. Now, of course, after that, I saw that my matches weren't quite perfect on 1 or 2 shots. I then ungrouped my shots and tweaked each one individually out just a little bit more. But what it did was it cut the amount of time for me to grade this down to almost nothing. I mean, literally, I had the basic match going in 10 minutes. Now, one of the things I talked about previously was essentially doing skin tone smoothing. And on a couple of the real close-up shots, I figured that I wanted to do a little bit of work on the skin tones. So let me show you very quickly how I did that. The first thing I did was I basically set up an eyedropper qualifier for the face, and I'm going to show you what I selected. So that was pretty simple. It took 1 click and a couple of plus things and we had it. I'm going to disable that. Now, so this didn't affect the rest of the image. I did a very quick and dirty garbage matte with a window just so I contained the effect into the face area here. Last, I went in here and I applied a little bit of blur, and that was it. I was done. I had applied a skin tone smoothing. It took me about a minute to do. And I went down and I did actually individually tweak a couple of the close-ups a little bit separately from each other. For example, on this shot, I actually manually tracked the window by hand. I just literally set 2 keyframes to get the position so that I handled that shot. And on this shot, I also did a little bit of work on the baby's face because I thought it could have used a little help. So now that I got all my shots evened out, you know, they basically match and that's great, but this is also a little bit flat. And there's a reason I graded this kind of flat. And that's because I knew that I had one more step in the process. That was to use the track over here. And what the track is basically a master corrector that applies to everything. And I can build nodes and everything else they did on a single clip, I can do on the track. So let me show you what I did with this. I went for a basic bleach bypass look. I said it right that time. High contrast, desaturated lows and highs, and kind of a warm brown tone. That was a look I decided I wanted to do. And I also applied a very subtle vignette effect onto the end as well. You really almost don't even notice that it's there unless I turn it off. So I did one more fix in here. If you take a look up in the wide shot, there is up in this corner a softbox reflection. Now, normally you'd use After Effects or some other compositing application to fix this, but it slipped through the cracks and here it is, and I need to fix it. Now, I can't do a perfect fix like I do in a compositing application, but I can improve it. Let me show you what I did. I'm going to turn on my correction for this. And what I did first was I got a highlight selection and I selected this area. I then contained it with a very carefully feathered window. Now, since this was a lock-off shot, it was very easy to play around with this feathered out and get it just perfect. Let's go back to our qualifier, disable it. And then what I did was I basically just color corrected the bright area down a bit and tinted it in to match the background. So while it's not a perfect fix, it does work pretty well. It certainly tamed it down and I think makes it far more passable pending actually doing a real fix. So I got a different look. I hope Kari likes it.
Okay, that completes round one.
Here we go again.
For round two, let's turn back to Steve, who's up first this time with a completely different project, creating a music video.
You know, it's really great to get a good creative project where you've got a lot of room to play, and I'd like to thank the guys in End of December for giving me that room and for letting me use their video today as part of this video. So let me tell you a little bit about the production itself. It's the classic one-camera music video shoot. It was shot in one day and done for a tiny little budget. Small crew, a little bit of lights, but we had enough to get the job done. So I hope that gave you an idea what the actual production was like. Now, I originally graded this in Premiere Pro using CUDA-powered RGB curves, and that was good. But it did take me a while to get that done. Now, I brought this over into Resolve and I graded it a second time, and I have to say it was a faster experience, and it was very, very cool to have masking and tracking tools and to be able to compile a bunch of nodes on there and just hit play. I'm not saying Premiere Pro's color correction isn't real time, but it lacks some things that Resolve has. So Resolve for me on this project was actually a lot faster, and in the end, while I got about the same grade, I spent a lot less time doing it. So let's take a look at one of the first challenges I had in this project, which was balancing out the look between all the different takes taken in a couple different locations, different lighting conditions, and just, it was crazy that day to say the least. So we have a couple of close-ups, and those are the first two things I matched, and I kind of locked in on the skin tones. I really have to say that having a real waveform monitor vectorscope here is really useful for getting your skin tones matched up. Once I got the two close-ups matched up, I kind of worked my way into a couple of the other shots here, in particular this wide shot. So once I had a base set of grades working, I saved my grades up out into my stills on the top here. And then as I went through here, I simply applied them with a keystroke. Now I could have locked them together with a group, but there's just so many shots in here, I just figured it was just too difficult and risky. Plus, I also have to say that sometimes when you see, for example, this one close-up, there's probably two takes of that I've cut together, and I've used different bits and pieces out of that. So sometimes, you know, you just got a little slightly different tweaks, so I didn't necessarily see that in this particular circumstance, grouping my clips together would have been beneficial. Let me take a look at a couple of these basic shots. I actually, on this shot, developed a base grade, and I seem to have actually wound up applying it to all my B-roll. It just kind of worked. I basically brightened it up. There's an HMI coming in from one of the windows, giving me a key light of sorts, and I did a little vignette. This is a very simple, basic, straightforward grade on here. All these other shots mostly involved copying and pasting the grade down the line. Again, different locations, and what I was looking here for was to just kind of even out the skin tones and get kind of a consistent warm look. The trees in the background, by the way, were lit with a couple of 1K open face behind them. So let's take a look at one of the critical shots of the storyline here. Now, it was shot with some lighting. There's a 1K outside the window with some CTB on it, and whatever bounce came in the room. And it's a little bit dark, but there's still plenty there to work with. So our first node on here was really just to boost everything up and start to see the face a little bit. Really what I want to do now is just get her face to kind of pop out of the shot. I put a vignette on that darkened the edges of the frame back down, and so now her face just pops out. But there was one more thing in the shot that was bothering me, and that was the window. So let's turn this grade on and I'll show you what I did to get rid of that brown spot. I set up, select it, a basic mask here, and I made some adjustments down here to pull blue into it to match what was originally there and overexpose and blow it out, and it was gone. Since this was a lock off, it just sits there and it's all good. Here's another shot that's part of the fight scene. And it's just a little bit underexposed, so on my first node I just boosted it up and that all looks pretty good. But again, we have a thing where does your eye want to really look at? Is it the back of the mother's head or is it the girl's face? So in this case, we again went into applying a mask where we darkened up the foreground and really let the girl's face pop out more. And it's a much better shot now because your eye really goes to the girl's face rather than staring at the back of the mother's head. Again, here is another example of directing the viewer's eye into a specific area in the frame. We did the same sort of correction, bringing the faces up and then darkening the surrounding areas down. So now that I've graded this twice, I can't wait to see what Kari's going to do with it. It's always interesting to see what another artist will do with your raw material.
Now it's my turn with Steve's music video. Now I did see Steve's original cut on this, and I know it was shot pretty warm, and he stayed with a pretty warm look in the grade. And one of the things I looked at and I said, there's really two things going on here. We've got the band's performance, and then we've got this teenage romance story. I decided I wanted to go for a really cool and fairly gritty look on the band and take the teen romance story and make it really ultra warm and fuzzy. So I actually have a graded version. I'm going to jump back to my Conform tab and load the version that I graded. Right away, for this first shot here, pretty dark, fairly unflattering, and here's what I ended up doing with it. Now let's break this grade down a little bit. Node 1, as always, balance the shot. And I did a qualifier, just a general selection contained by a power window, did some blurring and skin smoothing, joined them back together in this parallel node here. So then I added a node downstream from that, and really it just sort of took us into warm fuzzy land. So here's my first shot of the band. I just basically really cooled it off. It's a full frame single node correction. All the band footage got it with little tweaks here and there. I've crushed the blacks a little, but they're already kind of down there, so I didn't go too nuts with it. Here's an interesting shot. What I did here is, hey, first of all, it's music video, right? No rules, do what you want. I mean, literally, with a music video, you can kind of get away with anything and just call it art. It's kind of cool. I just, I cooled it off, but I decided these lines in the parking ramp here, I just decided, why don't I have some fun with that? And I selected them and did a secondary and just made them pop. There's only a couple shots like that. They roll by quick, but whenever you see one of those shots, boom, we got the camera shaking and we're tracking in those lines are glowing. So back to some romance, really warming up here. Here I'm doing a number of things. Let's turn it off. Kind of flat, kind of murky, and just really warmed it up. Now, to show you what's going on here is, there's your node 1 correction. Balance the shot. Node 2 is just sort of qualifying the hair. Normally where I do some skin smoothing, I'm doing some hair smoothing. So that's that. We've got the shot, and I just basically warmed it up with a little saturation there. And then, instead of a standard darkening vignette, I went with a vignette that throws color in there. I mean, look at this vignette here. It's basically the idea of a vignette, but I'm just pulling everything really red and really warm, and, here we are. Back to the cool band. Big contrast there between the warm and the cool. So, we're rocking out, crunching guitars. Again, back to our sort of romance look. Won't break it down totally for you. There's the before and after. Now this is raw footage on this shot, another one of our romance scenes, but this one's exterior, and you can see we've shot some really magic hour light, but none of it's in her face. Here's what I ended up doing with this grade. Power window. Qualified her face, lifted it up in the mids. And third node, that warming vignette look. Now here's where the mom finds the pregnancy test. Lifted them up, got some better contrast going. Now here's where a scene where we have a big argument. And I decided I would still live in the world of romance, but kill the warm vignette, pull some of the fuzzy blur out of it, just focusing the viewer's attention a little bit there. See how I'm still adding some warmth, but nowhere on the level I was when the story was happy? The story's not happy anymore. Not doing as much skin smoothing here because she's not happy and in love anymore. She is freaking out. Here, super silhouetted on the faces, just sort of evened it out. Node 2, I got a power window going, and then node 3, recovering some highlight detail. Now here I had some fun. We've got the girl, she's looking off into space, and I just decided that I wanted to actually kind of make it look like she's up against a blown out window. And I did that by adding a power window on this side of the frame in a secondary and just really blowing out the whites there. So there's your before and after. See how we're actually gently losing some of her face there to the blowout and the bloom? That's done with a power window. Back to one of our exteriors, but deliberately making this a little darker and a little gloomier because she's about to give her guy the news. I don't think he's taking it very well. So I know that was quick, but I hope you like this sort of brief alternate view on what might have been with this music video. And I kind of really hope Steve likes it too.
If only the glimmer in your eyes. I never said it seems a good fight's ever clean. And now I promise I cannot take it anymore. I'm burning by the rhythm your heart makes. And now I'm telling you, take everything from me, because words cannot express how dead I am without you.
So that was interesting.
Hey, that was fun.
Yeah, for a while I didn't know where you were going with that, but in the end it was pretty cool.
Thank you. You know, you did all right, considering you had to take the client's direction.
Yeah. I tend to take the direction of the person writing the
What,
check.
because they're paying you?
Exactly.
But you know what I like? Resolve is a tool for when the client's in the room and you got to work and you got to show them stuff and do stuff and hit play and go. And the other thing that I also like is Blackmagic continues to push updates out.
Yeah.
Very active development.
Yeah, and that's something we just didn't see with color.
So I mean, I can tell you personally that I brought 1 or 2 things up to them, and next release it was done. It was there. And I've heard similar experiences from other power users.
You know, it's completely replaced Apple Color in my workflow.
Good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't going anywhere. So, but no, I mean, even Apple marketing materials on the Final Cut 10 site are pointing people to use Resolve. I mean, it really is the color replacement for me anyway. This is not an advertorial here. I mean, we really feel that way. It's a great tool. It's growing, it's developing, it's under ongoing rapid development, and they're taking feedback. And you know, with the very capable free version out there, there really is almost no risk for anybody to give it a shot.
Yeah, so look, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. Go download it, check it out.
We'd really like to say thanks for hanging with us on this somewhat longer episode. Also, thanks for joining us for this series. This may be the last episode in our series on DaVinci Resolve, but we'll be back in the future with more series of In Production. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll know when something new gets posted. Better yet, subscribe to our blogs, where we each post news, reviews, and updates on the topic of production well beyond the scope of this show. Let's keep the conversation going. We'd like to thank Blackmagic Design, makers of DaVinci Resolve, for underwriting some of the costs of this episode. Check out the full range of Blackmagic Design products at their website, blackmagic-design.com. Transparency is important to us. While we have accepted underwriting support, our underwriters do not have any editorial control. We are expressing our own opinions and points of view. We want you, the viewers, to factor this as you view this content.